Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the report from another group of MPs who are laying bare the long-term damage of Brexit if the government doesn't get serious about working with the EU, and also how the Labour leadership is now talking about finally opposing the government on Brexit consequences. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I want to talk mostly about a new report from the DEFRA Select Committee of cross-party MPs who have highlighted endemic problems with Brexit that need urgent attention. However, we've also just had an article in The Guardian discussing Labour's new Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves's moves. In essence, the article is about her and a Labour team working with President Biden's team on economic policies. A timely reminder that a Labour-led UK could have really done some work with the US right now. If only Labour had agreed to the Progressive Alliance on offer in 2019, then Labour would have won and actually delivered a Labour government instead of the most crushing defeat in modern times. But anyway, separate topic. I've already touched on that this week. But at the end of the article, that's where it sort of got me interested. Because the rest of it, absolutely be working with other people around the world for social democracy, social justice. You can't do anything with it if you don't get power. But the end of the article on working with Biden's team was a bit on Brexit, and it goes like this. I'm going to read it out. She also intends to renew focus on the fallout from the Brexit deal, a subject that has been thorny for Labour to tackle. Not kidding. The party will begin to take bolder steps to highlight how significantly trade has fallen with the EU, but has not improved elsewhere, falling 18% in the first quarter and rising by just 0.4% elsewhere in the world, as well as the new burdens Brexit has placed on key UK industries. Now, my first thought was about bloody time. Of course, this isn't going to be a full assault against Brexit in concept. It's an assault on the consequences of Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. But right now, that'll do. I don't know when it's supposed to begin. And it doesn't state that Starmer himself will lead that attack. This is talking about Rachel Reeves, remember, and that would be vital. See, it's one thing. See, bear in mind, there's front bench Labour shadow ministers have already been bashing Brexit. We need Starmer to do it, to raise the profile. But anyway, there's more I could say about that, but I'm sick of false dawns with hints that Labour are finally getting ready to deal with Brexit. So I think I'll just leave it until there's something more concrete. But hopefully this is a good sign. But outside of party politics, parliamentary select committees are still doing their work and still highlighting the very real damage that Brexit is causing for their area of interest. There is now a growing body of parliamentary reports now highlighting just how much of a mess Brexit is making. And this latest one, the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee, has published a report talking about Brexit trade barriers for food and drink. And this isn't a gaggle of opposition MPs. It's a select committee, and the majority of its members are Conservative MPs who voted for both the withdrawal agreement and the trade and cooperation agreement. But there's no hiding the damage being caused to our food and drink sector. Indeed, any sector. The Scottish Farmer have reported on this from the point of view of Scotland Food and Drink, though other farming groups have also seized on it. Scotland Food and Drink have described the current arrangements as unworkable. Ooh, where have we heard that term talked about in relation to Brexit? Oh yes, everywhere, including within the government. Actually, every sector of our economy has described the current Brexit arrangements as unworkable. And that's both goods and service sectors. They talked about the lack of time that businesses were given to prepare. I mean, yes. See, with most new trade agreements, businesses are given several years, 2 or 3 years to prepare, quite often. Our businesses were given 1 week, and that was over Christmas. They also pointed at the lack of incoming checks. No border checks or friction at all for EU businesses selling in Britain was how they put it. Again, a theme that keeps cropping up in my videos. See, this is the absolute nonsense that Brexit has delivered. It's absolutely, it describes everything. The UK government continues to be adversarial with the EU instead of working with them. Completely antagonistic. At least publicly, there are reports of genuine engagement behind the Johnson and Frost smokescreen. But we have nothing to hold over the EU. In theory, Johnson could try getting concessions on checks by being extra harsh on checks for EU goods. It's like, well, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It wouldn't work to the degree he needs it to work because the EU aren't going to break their own laws just to do business with Britain. But he can't even do that, not for minor concessions, because there are no checks on the EU goods. So we have no bargaining position for even minor concessions. And right now, as this report points out, we need to agree a veterinary deal with the EU. We've got to. This is seen as absolutely crucial in order to help our exports in this sector survive. However, as much as it might be common sense for farming groups, there are two main reasons preventing it. Firstly, as I say, is that it's not in the EU's interests until they also need such an agreement. Until we start applying checks to EU goods coming into Britain, the EU don't need that agreement. It's not an urgent priority for them. Simple as that. Secondly, an agreement would only work on the basis that our standards are currently aligned. But Johnson has gone to great lengths avoiding any agreement that talks about aligned standards. Now, sure enough, the UK government has promised to maintain standards of food production in the UK. However, they have also legislated to allow for lower standard goods to be imported into Britain from elsewhere. Chlorinated chicken and the like. Most notably from the United States when we eventually agree a trade deal with them. Now, it's not immediately clear to me, and I grant you, I'm no expert, but it is not clear to me how we are going to remove the need for paperwork on food exports based on alignment of standards if we do not expect the same standards to be maintained on imports. How would the EU know, for example, that food being exported from Britain to the EU was produced in Britain, where we have the same standards, or imported into Britain with lower standards, because that's fine? The only way is with paperwork and checks. So even if we maintain our standards, if we allow in goods that don't meet those standards, the EU have to carry out checks and we have to fill in paperwork. Also, our standards are aligned now, but that doesn't mean they will be in a year or 2 years. Even if we maintained our standards and didn't allow lower standards on imports, also what happens when the EU raise their standards? Or just change them so they're not in alignment? If we aren't tied together on those standards, then the agreement would revert back to checks and paperwork anyway. And Johnson has absolutely no intention of tying our standards to those of the EU. And if Johnson is removed and a successor installed, I don't believe they will either. We won't get a Prime Minister who is willing to move closer to the EU until we have brought this government crashing down. What I don't understand in all this, the thing that continues to baffle me, is why the farming industry is letting the government get away with it. They have massive amounts of power. I can appreciate that Scotland Food and Drink can only lobby, because very few Scottish seats are Conservative, though some are, and they tend to be in rural areas as well. But throughout Britain, the Conservatives have seats in rural areas all over the place. You can see them not caring about fishing or manufacturing because they don't traditionally rely on seats in those areas. That being said, 2019 did turn that around a bit. But farming has always been a key sector for Conservatives. If the farming industry went to the Conservatives and said, your seat's not safe if you don't help us out, the Conservatives would immediately get on this. It's never been in their interest to screw over the farming community. But my question isn't, so why are they doing that now? My question is, why are farmers letting them? Because they are letting them. They're absolutely letting them. We're not talking about falling profits here. There are farmers who are being put out of business. In a few years' time, lots of people in farming right now won't be, without significant movement from the Conservatives. The farming industry as a whole can potentially wield a lot of political power because without their support, the Conservatives cannot win elections. So why aren't they using that power? That is the question that baffles me. Answers on a postcard, please. And also, how long are they going to continue to allow this to go on? Will they keep being fooled by promises of improvements in a few months? What happens when autumn comes and there's little significant progress made? What happens, at the start of next year when they fail to deliver again? At what point do these communities, whose very livelihood depends upon trade with our European neighbours, realise that nothing is going to improve whilst these charlatans are allowed to do as they please? I'd like an answer to that question as well, really. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.